Welcome back to SouhanUnfiltered. I'm Jim Souhan with my special guest, Michael Russo. Have you ever been called a special guest before?
Never.
I didn't think so, and there's probably a reason for that. Michael Russo, who I do some of my podcasts on my own. I do others, and especially this time of the year with Michael Russo. Great time of the year to have Michael on the team with the Minnesota Wild in the playoffs, coming off one of the more impressive playoff victories in franchise history. Tonight we're at the Liffey in St. Paul. If you don't know the Liffey, it's basically caddy corner from the XL Energy Center. Great place to have a drink before or after a Wild playoff game. We're also joined by our friends from the Minnesota Eye Consultants today. Anna Miller, who's been on the show before and who shamed me with her hockey knowledge and admitted publicly that she likes Mikko Koivu, which is just something people usually don't say in public. It's
that is mean.
It's really something you say in kind of the privacy of your own home, but you don't really broadcast that. So she obviously has guts. I appreciate that. And Mark Hansen, who is an MD, medical doctor, I'm guessing. I don't know. I'm not very smart, but I'm thinking a medical doctor. Corneal. Is it cornea or corneal specialist? Is that a proper...
Correct. Cornea specialist.
Cornea specialist. All right. And we'll be talking with them about their practice as we go on. And Mark, feel free to just jump in. Anna, feel free to jump in and tell me whenever I'm wrong. Actually, not every time, just every once in a while. Let's not do it too often. Michael, let's start here, though. Since we last spoke, I believe the Wild won a playoff series, and I came away from that playoff series with two thoughts, that the Wild, the way they play, the amount of effort, the way they've run their organization is one of the more admirable groups I've been around in Minnesota sports, and I've been here about 25 years now. And the Blues are a bunch of dogs. I thought they didn't compete. I thought they just picked spots. I didn't think they competed throughout the series. I suspect that some of them were trying to get their coach fired. That team should have put up much more of a fight.
Yeah, it was the tamest Blues outing I've ever seen. I mean, they were like we talk about run and gun and all the after the whistle stuff, but they're really, I mean, when you dissect the series as a whole, there really wasn't a lot of ugliness or nastiness. I mean, there were the typical after the whistle stuff that you sometimes see in playoff series, but other than Steve Ott, there was really nothing overly dirty at all, and it certainly felt like what you just said it was accurate. It was like they came in with this whole, we've got to put up or shut up. We're tired of this whole losing in the first round every year thing, and then they come in and they just really, to me, surprised me just how pedestrian their playoff round was. I mean, they obviously had the one breakout game in Game 4, but I think that could largely be attributed to poor goaltending.
Yes.
And other than that, man, I was a little surprised. There's no doubt about it.
No, I was just going to mention what's with Ott anyways, because he seems like he could probably actually play hockey really well.
I think it's coming through.
Is it coming through?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Just not in our headsets. So go ahead, Anna.
Sure. No, I just was making a comment about Ott because he's kind of a goon, but he seems like he could actually really play hockey if he wanted to apply himself.
Yeah, and if for some reason, by the way, if you didn't hear that, tweet us because we're not positive Anna's microphone's working. But the question is about Steve Ott. And, whether or not he could actually play hockey and not just be a goon. We'll never know because he never... I mean, there's nothing he does clean. That's the problem. I mean, he goes out there and he could be effective in his role. There's no doubt about it. But even when he checks people, it's sneakily dirty. And I just absolutely, I don't know. I don't have a lot of time for watching him play. I just think that, stick's always up. But then you watch him on that great play that he made in Game 6 where he steals the puck from Dumba by knocking him off the puck and then setting up Chris Porter in front of the net. I mean, that's a great hockey play, a clean hockey play. And for a guy that could skate and has pretty good skill, you'd wish that he'd do it more, and I think he'd be a lot more respected in this league. But, man, absolutely not impressed with his game at all.
Well, I hate his style of play.
Yeah.
The one thing I'll say is at least he cared. Some of those guys didn't care.
I know.
At least he cared enough
It's like
to do
he
cheap
didn't
stuff.
get the memo that they were trying to get his
Yeah,
shot
absolutely. And, no, I hate fake tough guys in any walk of life. It's if you're really a tough guy and you're going to fight somebody or you're going to make a really strong play and you're willing to take the punishment in return, that's hockey. That's contact sport. He didn't want to do that. He didn't want to take hits. He didn't want to do anything to help his team. I just thought he hurt his team time and again. He took stupid penalties. He got his instigation never really riled up the Wild. The Wild just laughed at him. I just thought he was a clown.
Yeah, the Wild are going to have to be equally as disciplined in this series. You know, it's going to be a different type of discipline in this series. You know, in the last round, they had to skate away from a lot of after the whistle stuff. In this series, they're going to have to be disciplined from an obstruction standpoint. This is a team that can skate, and it's very easily to just get overwhelmed and put your stick up, accidentally high stick people, interfere with people, hook people, all that stuff. And so they're going to have to be. I mean, the best part of that Wild series that the Blues did tried to get the Wild to take dumb penalties, and Wild were the least penalized team in the first round. But I'll tell you what, you know, they're going to have to continue to be that way in the second round because, as we all know, the Blackhawks can light it up on the power play.
So, just so you know, what we're doing when we do a show at the Cara Irish Pubs, that's Kieran's and the local in Minneapolis and the Liffey in St. Paul. If you show up, we're giving away to the first 50 people who show up and give us some kind of recognition on social media, retweet one of our tweets, like us on Facebook, say something on Facebook, any of that stuff. You get a free Guinness. That's the first 50 people who show up and do that. Also, we're giving away a nice kind of sheer Guinness jersey tonight to somebody who is here and asks a good question or retweets. And then we have a really nice, almost Minnesota Wild-inspired Guinness jersey. Looks kind of like one of their green and black jerseys. We'll be giving away at the end of the Wild playoff run
awesome.
to someone who retweets or shows up or whatever, asks a good question. And we'll also later on be taking Twitter questions and in-person questions.
We also, by the way, have a shirt to give away from Russo's Filter.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah,
yeah, that is it's in my bag. But Russo's Filter, who, if you don't know, he has outed himself on Twitter. His name is Nick Henry from New York, Rochester. I hope I'm allowed to say that. Lonnie, is that true that I'm allowed to say that? His real name? I could say that it's Nick Henry, right?
It's a little too late. And by the way,
Yeah.
for if you just happen to be listening for the first time, one of the great features of the Russo Souhan show is Russo 12 times in this hour will say, "I shouldn't say this, but," and then he will finish the sentence.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah, that's one. You
one.
keep a counter. Let's see if we can get this.
I think we can get up to 12.
So Nick, first of all, Nick started this account. Dr. Hansen might not know this because Dr. Hansen is not on Twitter. So, Twitter, there's a lot of people that ask, questions that show that they don't read anything I write. So he came up with this account that basically would, reply to anything that I just didn't want to reply to because I've already written it, or I don't feel like losing my temper on Twitter, stuff like that. So he started this account, but for a long time it was anonymous. And then he eventually put it out. But he started these T-shirts where it's basically, excuse my language, but it's RTFB, read the fucking blog, and it's what he gives out.
You can't say that on the
radio.
Yeah,
I know. So he basically has come up with this T-shirt, and he would send it. He'd have these contests every single game. And out of his own money, he made these T-shirts. And out of his own money, he mailed them off to people that won these contests. And I can't imagine how much money he invested in this for no gain of his own, other than he thinks it's cool. So then he came up with a second T-shirt to basically try to make sure that he can get his money back from this first one endeavor that he started. So he was nice enough to send me one of these shirts, and that's what we're going to give away today to. Might be one of these three, Severance Guy, Lonnie, or Jared here.
Yeah, we're on a first-name basis with our listeners and our viewers. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but it is true.
Yeah.
So, Mark, you were telling me you are from North Carolina. Are you a hockey guy?
So coming from North Carolina, hockey's not the big ticket in Durham, North Carolina. We know of the Hurricane, but the big ticket there in North Carolina is UNC and Duke basketball.
Yeah. You're from what part again?
Durham.
Durham, okay, which is basically Raleigh, right?
Yeah, it's close enough. Raleigh-Durham is the airport.
Do you get offended when people look at just consider Chapel Hill, Raleigh, but they consider Durham?
Nah, it's close enough that it doesn't bother me at all.
Raleigh is one of my favorite places in the world. I'm one of the hockey writers that love going to that city, just because one, I have a ton of friends there. But North Carolina is awesome.
It is. We were talking about that off the air. I mean, that's one of those places I could see myself retiring. Although I'm a journalist, I'm not ever going to be able to retire. What am I saying? So it's a place I'll visit. It's a place I'll visit.
Dr. Hansen's going to be able to retire.
Yes, he will.
You and I are going to be like Sid.
Maybe if we kiss up to him, he'll have us to his mansion every once in a while. We can stay in the servants' quarters.
So at Minnesota Eye Consultant, what do you? I mean, talk about the business and what you try to get accomplished there.
Yeah, so that's Minnesota Eye Consultants is what brought me here from North Carolina. It's really one of the premier eye clinics in the country. Offer all sorts of services. The focus of our group is education, research, and obviously patient care. We want to deliver the best quality of vision to our patients. We're an anterior segment group. Anterior segment meaning all things related to glaucoma, cataracts, cornea, oculoplastics, including any aesthetics procedures as well. And LASIK and refractive surgery is a big part of our practice as well.
And it's.
Have you heard the story about him jumping off the operating table? I know we've told it, but I'd love to tell it again.
I'd love to hear it.
Dr. Samuelson, who's a big hockey guy, right?
That's right.
I think actually his son played in Minnetonka, yep. Yeah, actually with my cousins. So anyway,
you know everybody.
Yeah. This is every time I tell this story, I'm so embarrassed, especially right next to an eye doctor. Right next to an eye surgeon, I'm going to tell the story. But basically, yeah.
So what you're saying is you shouldn't say this, but
I was getting LASIK and I freaked out. I did. I basically was at the office and was getting it done, and then I said, adios.
Well, and there's four of us sitting around the table, and you're the only one with glasses still.
Yeah, I know. That's a great point. My brother just got LASIK, actually, and my mother just got double cataract surgery, so I am the only wimp so far. So
we're going to get you on the table. Yeah. I'm saying as soon as
I think we should do a podcast from the table.
Absolutely,
we can do that.
Can you imagine me on Valium doing this show?
Then you wouldn't say I shouldn't say this, but you would just say it. There would be no prelude. There would be no preface.
I remember actually I was once coming out of surgery once, and I was getting off the anesthesia.
How many things are wrong with you?
Right when I woke up, I asked my my girlfriend at the time. I'm like, do you know how many Marriott points I'm getting for this day? and I don't remember saying
the ultimate sports writer question for all contexts.
Yeah, but she's like, Michael, you're in the hospital. You're not getting Marriott points for this day. So could you imagine that would be a heck of a podcast
that would be pretty good, but you're not put to sleep.
I still might ask for Marriott points. So.
Well, there you go. We'll see if we can arrange that.
I think that's a great cross promotion.
Have you been to any Wild games yet, or?
I have been to a handful of games, and Dr. Samuelson and I talk about the Wild, almost after every game.
Yeah. He's a heck of a fan. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I'm well aware of that.
Yeah, he's been teaching me kind of the ins and outs of hockey since I'm a new fan this year.
Did you go to any Hurricanes games?
I went to 0 Hurricane games.
Hurricanes.
It's not the hard.
It's a fun experience because at Carolina games, it's right. The parking lot is, basically NC State.
Right.
So they tailgate. And so you go to a Carolina Hurricanes game, and there are people outside 2-3 hours before barbecuing. I mean, it's like no other hockey experience you see. It's very much the college football, not just the college football thing. I mean, the whole NASCAR climate. I mean, it's a different crowd. There's no doubt about it.
All right, before we get deep into the hockey questions, Mark, think of a good hockey question because you're going to get to throw out the first question of the conversation. Before we get to hockey, we do like to do some other sports, some other topics. So very quickly, Mike Pelfrey. I think this is one of those weird things where you end up being friends with Mike Pelfrey. I don't know how that happens, but it always happens.
Yeah.
I'm friends with Adam Duritz. I'm friends with Mike Pelfrey.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't understand your life, is what I'm trying to say. But you're buddies with Mike Pelfrey, and he's pitched great the last few times out.
Yeah, I'm excited for him. I got to meet Mike Pelfrey last year before the season. The Wild were opening up. The Wild were in Chicago, I think, on April 1st, and the Twins were opening in Chicago. And that series, Pelfrey was not starting. I think he was the fourth starter last year. So I think he was starting the first game in Cleveland. And so he wasn't there, so I went to dinner with him at Gallagher's. I think it's Gallagher's. What's that awesome place on Rush Street? But anyway, went to dinner with him, and is it Gibson's? And he and I became pals, and went to the Basilica Block party with him, and hung out a couple times. Actually, the coolest thing was so I told him my brother is a huge Mets fan, is a huge fan of yours. And, he calls him Big Pelf and all this stuff. And so I told him this at the Basilica block party, and he goes, oh, if your brother comes here this summer, maybe I'll come out to lunch with you guys. So anyway, he came and surprised my brother. And so my brother, we're at Crave in the West End, and he timed it. Pelfrey did not want me to tell my brother he was coming. Which kind of tells you how cool this guy is, right? I mean, he's a genuinely nice guy. He wanted to surprise my brother. So my brother, it was like the perfect time. My brother's sitting at the table. It's my mom. I'm going to another name drop here. Eric Stolhansky, from Super Troopers. He's a good friend of mine.
You keep dropping his name, but you never introduce us, so I don't know.
Yeah. Well, he's been in LA. He's writing he's doing Super Troopers 2 now. So that was the other thing. Pelfrey came to lunch to meet my brother and all that. So my brother is running around, and at Crave in West End, there's these huge curtains. And my brother's son, who is 2 years old, starts running around, and he gets caught up in these curtains. So it was perfect. I see Pelfrey walking in. He's walking with Paul Fletcher from Cities 97. Mm-hmm. They're buddies. And so my brother goes digging for my nephew in these curtains, and all of a sudden he picks up my nephew, stands up, and towering over my brother is Pelfrey, and my brother just looks at him and goes, "Holy shit!" It was just, and then Pelfrey just dying laughing, and it was a cool town. So I'm excited for him because he was playing hurt all last year, and then finally they diagnosed what his issue was, and he had surgery, season-ending surgery, and this is last year of his deal. So I'm hoping that this continues. He certainly looks like a healthier pitcher. And
I will admit that I completely jinxed today's game. I'm watching the game. They take the 7-3 lead. And I tweet
saw
out,
that on Twitter.
I tweet out, okay, I know everybody was burying the Twins. They were 1-6 to start the season, and they're coming off 4 bad years, so it was easy to pick on them. And they're about to win and go 9-5 since that start. And I swear to God, as soon as I tweeted that, they gave up 18 runs.
That I saw your tweet, and the first thing I thought while they were still up is, what an idiot.
Yeah.
You are a sports writer. You know what you're supposed to say and not say in a press box. And I think that you forgot that you weren't in the press box, and that's like being up 3-0 in the third period and saying this game's over.
But you're right. When I'm in a press box, I know all the rules. Yeah. All the rules stay right in the frontal lobes. I was actually sitting here having lunch. I look over and they're winning by, and I saw I just was sending out what I thought was a fact, and it was a little. You're right. I was an idiot.
Yeah, I feel bad for who was covering the game for us, Lavelle or Phil Miller.
Same guy. I don't know.
So one of them.
I said because Lavelle is a very round black man, and Phil's a very skinny white person. So
I would say that 100%. If that was a night game,
then
you did it, you should probably lose your writer's credential.
Mm-hmm. So I really can't disagree with that.
Yeah.
By the way. This is apropos of nothing, which is why I like podcasts. You can say stuff that's apropos of nothing. So the Kentucky Derby's this weekend. Mm-hmm. And it brought up one of my favorite Sid stories, and I'm going to tell it just because I like telling Sid stories. This is a really old one. Back in the old days, a guy named Ira Burkow, who had become a very famous sports writer for the New York Times, and wrote a bunch of books. He was kind of a cub writer, a fast-rising writer at the Minneapolis, whatever it was, the Tribune back then. And they sent him to the Kentucky Derby. And this is like one of his first columns. He goes down there and he writes an interview of Secretariat. So it's kind of a first person. This is what Secretariat has to say before the big race. Well, Sid comes in the office that afternoon, and it's always other people's business. That's who he is. Goes over, grabs the raw copy that Ira had sent in, reads over it, and looks at the copy desk chief and says, "God damn, we're sending a guy over to Kentucky, and he interviews a horse." And that's one of my favorite Sid stories.
Have you been to the Kentucky Derby?
I have been to Churchill Downs. I've not been to the Kentucky Derby. And honestly,
I would love to go.
I can't deal with that many hats.
I can't. I would not. All right, let me say that. I would love to go to Churchill Downs, but that would be, to me, intimidating with that many people at an event. I think it would not be comfortable. Yes. I've been to the Belmont Stakes, actually, when I was a kid, and I remember that being uncomfortable as a kid. So... But Louisville's a great place.
The right sections are, yes.
Yeah. I used to cover the Florida Panthers, if you didn't know, and they used to have
You never bring that up.
Yeah, they had their minor league team was in Louisville for a while, and so I had pretty good fun there. Going to Louisville Slugger and all those places.
Now you're going to tell me no Muhammad Ali and Rick Pitino and...
No.
And I'm going to give you one other story since the Pacquiao-Mayweather fight is this weekend. I'm in Miami covering the Super Bowl. Same Super Bowl where I got to see Prince play like 8 songs at a press conference, which was like one of the great musical experiences of my life. For some reason, I end up in this small group of writers who go interview Mayweather. He's trying to sell a pay-per-view fight. And we're in a little room, and I don't feel great about making Mayweather sound interesting because he beats women. So, I think he's a really bad guy. I don't want to give him any of my money for the pay-per-view. But I will say he was pretty funny in this context. We're talking to him, and he starts describing his house in Vegas. And I can't remember which, I don't know if it's a Ferrari or Lamborghini, but whichever car it is he really likes, he has like 8 of them. And he has a garage that houses his 8 white Lamborghinis. And he was talking about, yeah, man, I got to sell this pay-per-view thing. The last time I had a fight, what I did was I had the maid go around the house and turn and buy the fight on all my TVs, jack up the revenues. I'm not sure the math really works here, but that was the. And so one of us said, well, how many TVs he's had? He's all 42. So that's how Floyd Mayweather lives. 8 Lamborghinis, 42 televisions in his house. Yeah, absolutely.
I've never covered boxing.
I've covered some minor boxing.
Yeah. Actually, I did cover a minor boxing once. Do you want to hear that?
Yeah.
Tanya Harding versus a transvestite.
What?
Yeah. During the lockout in 2004-05, my paper had me covered.
Technical problems. We'll try to get it going.
Hello.
Here. You're good.
Okay. So in this first series with the Blues, I hated the fact that they totally demolished the one game, but it was encouraging to see them come back and actually play fairly consistently after that, because I don't think historically they've been very good about bouncing back. So that was encouraging. Excited to see how they do against Chicago, having a little bit of time to rest, and hoping that we'll keep winning games.
You throwing parties? Or are you staying up late and watching the 8:30
starts?
Yeah,
watching the games with Dr. Hansen and Dr. Samuelson because we work all the time. No, yeah, we're not really throwing parties. Trying to stay up and watch the games, so we'll DVR them if we have to. But I haven't gotten out to any of the games yet, so.
I tell you what, it's a great atmosphere. And listen, I'm somebody, and I know I used to anger Wild fans all the time. They say, it's kind of boring hockey. They're just playing clutch and grab. They're playing neutral zone. They're just trying to slow down the other team. They're trying to win 1-0. Not many good personalities on the team. I mean, the only real reason I used to like cover the Wild was because Jacques Lemaire would say something funny every other sentence. He was a great guy to be around. This is so different. Now they still have a defensive system, but it's a defensive system they're trying to translate into offense. They're trying to score off their defense. Great personalities in the locker room. I like Yo a lot. I like Fletcher. Leopold's going to come on the podcast with us.
Tuesday.
By the way, Tuesday, 2 o'clock here at the Liffey. Craig Leopold's going to do a podcast with us live. And again, if you come by, you get a free Guinness. And we'll give away a jersey or something like that. And
of the Wild game, I basically wrote how awful the game was using Jacques as the quote, and the next day or the next game, a Bob Nagley, the former owner of the Wild, came up to me in the press box and called me a prick because I was so negative.
Why do you?
I'm like it was your freaking coach that's the one that said this. And so anyway, whatever.
Yeah, you're obviously over it since you bring it up like every podcast.
Pisses me off.
Well, now he's got an opportunity to bring it up with us sitting here.
Yeah, exactly.
He does, absolutely.
Yeah, but that was funny. I mean, that's when I first heard of Dr. Samuelson the first time.
Hey, I want to point out the generosity of Mr. Michael Russo too. He bought a couple of Death Cab for Cutie concert tickets early this year. He didn't. The guy who didn't pick the Wild last round, by the way, I'm selling you out completely. Also, didn't think the Wild were going to make the playoffs like in January. So he buys 2 concert tickets. He just gave them away for free.
Well, what happened was who would think on January 30th that the Wild would make the playoffs but be in the second round? So. It's not even. Here's even the funnier part of the story. Okay, so not only did I buy Death Cab for Cutie tickets for this thing, but then about 3 weeks later, I'm thinking to myself, well, there's no way the Wild are going to be in the second round of the playoffs, and Trampled by Turtles is playing on First Avenue on Saturday. So I bought 2 tickets for that. So not only did I buy 2 tickets for Death Cab that I gave away, but I bought 2 tickets for another concert on the same day. Without forgetting that I bought 2 tickets to the Death Cab.
This is what 18 gallons of coffee did to your brain.
So then I had 4 tickets for the same day for 2 different concerts that I've all given away. So I gave 2. The Trampled by Turtles I didn't mind because it was to a buddy of mine that loves them. But then all of a sudden this morning I'm like, I think I have Death Cab. So I found those, and that's what happened. Jared was the first one. A lot of people wanted them.
How many other tickets do you have that you've never used then? Somewhere?
You know what? This is not the first. Last year, I'm almost positive because to get concert tickets. I mean, you don't know when the Wild are gonna. That's my entire life. That's why last year, what was it? I had to cancel an entire trip because all of a sudden the Wild are in the second round. So I've stopped that. I haven't canceled anything until.
Don't make plans.
We're gonna go mid-July now, just in case the Wild. I've been getting annihilated for not picking the Wild to make to.
That's why I brought it up.
And so today I was making my prediction for the paper, and I was thinking to myself, maybe I'll go against the Wild just to help them, to actually, give them a little motivation.
There's no question.
To you pick against them and maybe they'll win. But now because I've gotten ripped apart by so many fans, just to spite the fans, I picked the Wild to win this series, and now if they win, I'm going to get annihilated for that.
Yeah,
you're making my head hurt.
Yeah. Did that make sense? The rationale?
It made no sense, and I'm going to ignore it completely.
Yeah,
let's move on.
I don't know. I don't understand why fans are so upset that I didn't pick them.
It's time for Ask Russo. Let's face it. That's what the second half of the show is. And by the way, Michael, you're allowed to keep answers less than 15 minutes if that suits you, just so we can get through this. I'm ripping you a lot today, by the way. So Mark Hansen, MD with Minnesota Eye Consultants, 2 things. First, tell me a little more about your business. Tell me why people should go to Minnesota Eye, and then you get to ask Russo the first hockey question.
All right, so one of our favorite things to do is LASIK and refractive surgery, and that's a great procedure. If you're fumbling around with glasses and contacts, it's time to invest your money in your vision. It's a fantastic procedure. Looking out here at the people in the podcast, I don't see many people wearing glasses at this time, but maybe they got contacts that they could get rid of.
I'm getting close. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting close. Where I see fine, but every once in a while I start doing this, and I'm holding my arm farther out. My arms aren't that long, so eventually I'm going to have to go do it.
I will say that
maybe Russo and I like how about 2 operation tables doing a podcast in the same room, both getting LASIK, and that way he's a really big wimp if he gets up and runs out. He's not
right. Yeah, you can hold him accountable. The neat thing about LASIK too is just how much the technology has advanced. It's kind of a continual improvement on. Now we're using lasers to create the flap, lasers to correct the cornea, all laser procedure, super slick, super fast. Really incredible outcomes and patient satisfaction. So there's not any really good reasons not to go through with the procedure, Mike Russo, if you've considered it. So,
and what's the recovery time?
There's a couple different variations of LASIK, but for traditional LASIK or all laser LASIK, you're back, the next day doing regular activities. So yeah, it's incredible.
All right, Mark, throw out the first question. Make it a tough one.
All right. Well, I'm pretty new. This is my first year really following and watching hockey. But I've done. I think I read in your rant that that the Wild have lost the last 2 years to the Blackhawks. Yeah. So what do they need to do different this year? What's different this year that's going to have a different outcome?
Yeah, I mean, they've. I hate to say it. Because Jim just went on a rant about how excited he is by how entertaining this team is, but I don't think they could be very entertaining. The reason why this Wild team has been so good on the road this year is that they just kind of stick to it, almost dumb down the game, play very simplistic hockey, and even when that game is 0-0, they don't change the way that they play until the point that eventually they pounce. And we've seen it so many times. We saw it in that one game in St. Louis where all of a sudden in third period, Niederreiter and Brodziak scored like 20 seconds apart. And the reason why I say this is that when the Wild clinched the playoff spot April 7th in Chicago, they played a real tight game, just with it and really limited Chicago's chances. Then, boom, all of a sudden Zucker and Granlund scored and the Wild clinched the playoff spot. And if the Wild are going to try to, play a track meet with this Chicago team, they're going to lose. I mean, I know the Wild are faster, and I know they're more balanced, and we all, really do believe that this is a better team. Just crazy. So they're already down 1-0 in each game, so they got to figure out a way to outscore Brian Bickle.
Do we have any...
Ryan Suter today, and you'll get a kick out of this, Ryan Suter today was asked by a reporter, what do you have to do to how much are you tired of facing Brian Bickle? And Ryan Suter looked at him like he was from outer space, and he goes, he's had success against us, but you know what? I'm tired of facing them all. Like, they got a lot of good players that we've got to watch.
I don't think they're going to the series saying, God, we can't have Brian Bickle.
Yeah, I know. Like, we got to shut down Brian Bickle.
Right.
Can you imagine even guys in the Chicago locker room probably laugh at
yes,
that.
absolutely.
Oh, my God, they're going to shadow Brian Bickle.
Anna, you have a question?
No,
Hey,
well,
look, the
yeah,
Twins
I do.
are up 7-3 right now.
Hey, I think
they're
they're
gonna win.
Tweet it out,
It's
Souhan.
over. You know what? I'm an idiot.
I actually have a special place in my heart for Taves. Growing up in Fergus Falls, we went to quite a few UND games, more than we ever went to any Gopher games. So, and my first jersey ever was a Blackhawks jersey. I'm not a Blackhawks fan, but it's kind of...
They're awesome jerseys, though.
It was a sweet jersey.
Does your 7-foot husband know that you are...
Yes, he does. Well, I wasn't a huge Blackhawk fan. I was a huge Fighting Sioux fan, and then I just happened to have a Blackhawks jersey. But
any live... Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I do have a question, too.
Yes.
With you mentioned goaltending. Obviously, we have pretty stellar goaltending going into this, and Crawford usually plays really well against us. But what do you think that matchup will be like? He was kind of faltering a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a big reason why it'd be huge if the Wild can pounce on them early and just put a lot of doubt in both the crowd's mind and his mind. It's very clear, reading all the articles in Chicago the last couple days and being on their talk. I was on one of their radio talk shows this morning. It's very clear everybody's worried about this guy, and if all of a sudden you can, put some fear in that fan base and create some anxiety by getting on this guy early, I think that would only, goalie is such a mental position, so if you could put some doubt into Crawford's mind, that'd be huge, because I don't buy that what we saw of Scott Darling. I think what we saw of Game 6 of Scott Darling is really Scott Darling, so I'm not worried about him. But if you get to the point where the Blackhawks are starting to doubt their goaltending, that'd be massive. It was hilarious today. First question to Joel Quenneville was a question on what kind of luxury is it to have two goalies, and that's always the kind of the question. Like, that was kind of the question we asked last year to Mike Yeo. Wow, Brzgalov, Kemper, what a luxury.
Was anybody dumb enough to ask that question
So today it was, what a luxury is it to have two goalies like this? And usually, like, you know that Quenneville's like, luxury,
right.
What I like is one of them to freaking stop the puck.
Exactly.
Routinely.
The old NFL saying is, if you go around saying you have two quarterbacks, means you don't have one.
Right. Yeah.
And I think the same with goalies. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. Continue.
Any live questions? Any questions from the audience? Come up.
Severance guy.
And while you're coming up, let me tell you that you can always get my podcasts or the podcasts I do with Michael Russo at SouhanUnfiltered.com. You can listen to it on iHeartRadio anytime, listen to it live, you can listen to it anytime later. You can also subscribe for free on iTunes and have it delivered to your inbox. I don't know what an inbox is, but that's what they tell me. Yes, sir.
Two quick comments first. I had eye surgery about 15 years ago. Best thing I ever did in my life. It
Awesome.
it was life-altering
So Russo should have it like tomorrow.
Absolutely. Second thing, just having Jacques Lemaire do the Let's Play Hockey would be an awesome thing if the Wild would ever think of flying him up here to do that. I
tried to, I believe, last year, and he just something happened, and
it didn't work out.
I'd love to this time.
Yeah, and then 2 quick questions. First off, and I know this is water over the dam. It doesn't matter anymore. But at the end of the second period, with whatever it was, 8-9 seconds to go, face off in the defensive zone, and Mikael Granlund jump over the boards to take a face off against Backus. I couldn't figure that out. And
when was this?
Right when they scored at the end of the second period.
Yeah, I mean, Koivu was on the shift, the previous shift, and then they put 2 centers out there, and I think Mike Yeo wanted Brodziak to take it. But it was on the left side, so Brodziak, you could see it on tape.
Okay.
Brodziak motioned for Granlund to take it.
Oh, I couldn't figure that.
That's because it was his strong side.
And then lastly, just the power play. Second line versus first line. It seems like when you just on Sunday being in the arena that the second group was moving the puck so much quicker. We're so deliberate with that first group. Is that coaching or is that the lineup?
Players on there. It's not a different setup. It's the type of players that they got on there, and it's the same thing every single time. You're absolutely right. I think it's why Mike Yeo has tried to have a quicker hook with that first unit. But one of my criticisms is that if you're not going to change the personnel, you don't have to always start with the first unit. You can throw the second unit out once in a while, every now and then. If you truly believe that you have 2 great units, one A and 1B, then you could start the 1B all the time. But that is, I mean, it's a different type. It's a different look. Even in practice today, it was totally different. I mean, they were so much better the second unit than the first unit. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, well, that's it. I won't go on.
Any other questions from
Seems
the
like
audience?
It's bothering you, Jim.
It does. I just it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
To see that group out there, and you watch Detroit, you watch Montreal. They move that puck so fast.
Yeah.
And the idea is to move the puck on the perimeter to get guys out of position.
Yep.
And we're so deliberate that. And then we jam one in the front of the net and goes off somebody's skate and goes in, and we think it's a great goal. But, it just is it's frustrating as a fan.
I do like, Severance Guy, your question, though, on the face-off thing, because I don't think a lot of people know that. I mean, first of all, I understand why Koivu was taken off there because he was out there for a minute, and then Scandella didn't get the puck out. So Mike Yeo actually did the right thing by putting his second center out there in case one of them got kicked out. But the way that it is on the Wild is that if you have a strong side center or a weak side center in that position on his weak side or strong side, depending on where the faceoff is, it is up to the center to basically tell the other one if he feels more comfortable for him to take it. And I don't know. I haven't asked Brodziak. I don't know if Brodziak was particularly struggling against Backus, or he was struggling, or he just wasn't comfortable taking one on his, that side there. But there you could see where he told Granlund to take the draw because it was on his left side, and that's one where you kind of wish the better centerman just takes it,
And plus, Backus was just trying to get his coach fired anyway, so it wasn't that big a deal.
Actually, and if you think about it, that was far from Granlund's fault. Watch that face-off over again. Who?
Scandella.
But on that draw, Granlund didn't lose it. It was a 50-50 puck after the draw. He ties up Backus, and Matt Cook didn't dig the puck out. And then the puck went into the corner, and that's when Oshie sent it up to Pietrangelo, who sent it over to Shattenkirk, and then the puck went right to Oshie. So that was, to me the whole Brodziak and Granlund thing is, not the issue there. The issue is there that the winger, or it's technically Dumba. If I remember correctly, it was Dumba and Cook were right there, and they didn't win the puck battle. So, a lot of times we look at faceoffs as like it's the center's job, and if they're because they get credit for the win or the loss. But frankly, a lot of times it is very much dependent on whether or not your winger or your defenseman's digging the puck out after a tie-up. And I thought Granlund did a fine job there. And that's where, to me, the winger or the defenseman have to help out.
I had an hour-long conversation with Doug Riseborough about exactly that way back, 10 years ago.
That must have been a riveting conversation.
It actually was. I was talking about face-offs, and we're sitting there watching a morning skate, and I asked him about face-offs, had some technical question, and by the end of the conversation, he had me up in the concourse, and we were bent over, and he was showing me, and he was making exactly the point you made, which is everybody tries to just judge a face-off man on his record, but he said half the time he was in the face-off circle, he was just trying to tie up the opponent so his guy would come in and get the puck.
No, yeah. I mean, this just very rarely are things going to be won cleanly off a draw. It's very much, very much dependent on the wingers in there. There were a bunch of defensive zone draws in St. Louis where I really thought that Vanek could have helped out a lot more on Coyle potential wins, and same thing, didn't go in there. So, any other questions from the audience? Jared? What's your favorite Death Cab for Cutie song? And I know you're not going to know because I know you got these tickets for your girlfriend.
It doesn't mean that I don't know my own Death Cab for Cutie. It's the one with the vacancy signs. Blanking, not Soul Meets Body, but it's on that. It's on that army. It's on that album.
You know where I saw Death Cab the last time? I've seen them a bunch. I saw them at Las Vegas at the Cosmo, the outdoor pool, a couple summers ago. Yeah, I'll tell you what. If you ever want to see a great concert, go to the Cosmo's outdoor pool. I've seen everybody there. I saw the Shins there, so Counting Crows there.
I'm just picturing you hanging out with Lenny Kravitz or something.
Sitting by the poolside, getting slots. No.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw one of the things before the Blues matchup was the Wild speed versus the Blues physicality. And it ended up that the Blues the Wild out-hit the Blues in round one. So now we're looking at two speedy teams matching up against each other in round two. Or is it the physicality that beat the Blues that's going to tip the scales?
Well, I will say in this series, don't pay attention to hits because we get hits in the press box. They give them out so easily there. It is. I think we were just in Chicago 3 weeks ago, and there were like 80 combined hits or something in the game. I mean, it was ridiculous. So I would not pay attention to that. But this is going to be a series one on speed. Really, if the Wild could keep these scores down to 2-1, 3-2, I think it benefits them. If it's a high-scoring series, it benefits Chicago. I don't think, I will say that I think Chicago is sneaky tough because, from a different point of view, they're more kind of like, when Mike Yeo always says we're a different type of tough. That's kind of the way Chicago is. They lean on you, they pin you in your own zone. I mean, there's few teams that can hen you in your own zone for a long period of time, like the Blackhawks. I mean, there were times in that Nashville series where the Predators just couldn't even get the puck out. It was intense watching that series and how helpless the Predators were at times in that series. And the winning goal in Game 6, where Duncan Keith scored, it was like a matter of time, man. I mean, the Predators got so badly outplayed on that shift that Seth Jones and Roman Josi were at the point in the D zone, and Matt Cullen and Victor Stahlberg were down low playing defense. I mean, that's how absolutely out of sort they got. It's an intense type of atmosphere, and that's what the Wild have to be careful of in the series.
Thanks for the question. Appreciate it. Anybody else want to come up? If not, we'll go to Twitter questions, but feel free.
You guys got a question?
You can just scream it out if you want.
You get your free Guinness? Absolutely. Did you get your free LASIK?
I've got good eyes. No, with the sample size that we've seen with Dubnyk so far, playing great. I guess as fans, do you think we can come to expect that in years to come?
I think so. I mean, obviously we're going to have to see, but I look at him today. I mean, we were watching him today, and he made some ridiculous saves. And what I love about watching him play is there's no nervous energy in that. You rarely see him flopping around, or there's just no unnecessary movement by him at times, and it's because he tracks the puck so well, and I don't know. There's the fundamentals there are really, really good, and I'm obviously a layman, but he's just very good, and so I don't see why this wouldn't be the person that we see for a long time. And the one thing that you have to say about the Wild era, not just under Mike Yeo, but obviously Jacques, is that this team I think it's kind of a land where all goalies should want to play because they're so good in their own end. So even if Dubnyk ever has like kind of that, natural where all of a sudden he's not as good, I mean, you're still only going to be facing 23 shots a game, and of those, maybe 7 or 8 are going to be prime scoring chances. So, to me, that's why a lot of people are just, obviously the price keeps on going up for this guy, and what they're going to have to re-sign him for this summer, I can't even imagine. But if I'm Devin Dubnyk, I also know I don't want to go anywhere. So I'm sure there's going to be some game of chicken for both of them. But at the end of the day, Chuck Fletcher knows that what he's got to sell to Devin Dubnyk are two things. One, you want to play for us. You don't want to go back to a situation like Edmonton. Right. And two, really, if you give us a quality price here at a quality term, this is what we could do also to help improve the team. So, it's going to be an interesting game this summer when they try to re-sign him. But I would not be too concerned. Before kind of what you asked is, I'm like, how much term can you give this guy? Like, you don't really want to sign him for 5-6 years because you almost want him to prove it again. But now it's like if they gave him a 4-year deal, I wouldn't absolutely worry at all. If they suddenly went 6-7 years, I think that'd be a little ridiculous. But I wouldn't be too worried going over 2 or 3 years with him. So.
And I agree with you. 2 reasons. You've seen him under thanks for the question. We appreciate it.
Like,
thanks
these are all pressure-packed games.
He had to play every game for how many in a row? 37? 38 games in a row. And he had to play every game under pressure. And then, to me, he passed the big test. He had a horrible game against the Blues. He gave the Blues a game at home. And then he bounced back and played great the next day. To me, that meant a lot. You saw him under adverse circumstances. And not only did he play great the next game, but he was the same guy in the locker room. He was just loose, a funny, nice guy.
I remember I was joking with Chris Miller that night. I'm like, I can't wait till the Wild win the Cup in a couple of weeks or in a month, and we could write back to the 6-1 game as being the turning point. I was saying it tongue in cheek, but
you're such a smart
and honestly, I mean, we could be writing about that in a month. Like, remember when they lost 6-1 and this guy proved everything?
Absolutely. All right, we'll go. If anybody from the audience wants to ask another question, just come on up. Otherwise, I'll go to Twitter questions. But if I'd rather,
we got somebody.
I would rather favor the people who showed up. Yes, sir.
Fourth line-wise, who do you guys like? I mean, Cook and Fontaine seem pretty effective. In the last few games of the series there, they kind of started out with Schrader mixed in. I do like his scoring capability, but I guess in the Chicago series, if it plays a little differently, who do you guys like there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I do think that this series is a very different one than St. Louis, so my guess is that they're going to start with Cook there, but if all of a sudden there's some adversity in the series, because it's a different opponent, that's when you throw in some speed. And I think Schrader at this point would get in over Haula. I mean, Haula is so far in the doghouse, it is almost unbelievable. I mean, it's like not even an option anymore. He doesn't even skate warm-ups when there's a chance that that still he's not going to play. It's like, I don't know what happened there with he's in deep. Schrader, their concern with Schrader is in his own end. I mean, and we even saw it in practice today. He's just, I don't know if it's not picking up the system or it's just, his natural, tendency to think offensively. But even in his own end today, just watching Vanek, he just is so much more trustworthy in his own end than a guy like Schrader. I just don't know, and I think that's where they're really struggling because I know they would love to play Schrader. But right now in his own, you just can't afford to not have somebody that's on the same page as everybody else in his own end in a series like this. So, but if you think about it, I mean, where Schrader has played great this year is against Chicago. That first game they played up, he had 7 shots, and so my guess is that if all of a sudden they lose a game, they'll start with Cook, and if all of a sudden they lose a game, then maybe you play Schrader. But the issue with Schrader is can he play left wing because they obviously want to keep Fontaine in the lineup.
Honestly, I'm not worried about the fourth line. I think they'll find some combination that'll be as good or better than other people's fourth lines. My 2 big concerns are Vanek gave them nothing in the last series. He's one of those guys, he's in the lineup to score, so when he doesn't score, he's just giving you nothing. Yeah. And I thought Stewart saved his series with that one beautiful setup. on a key goal. But otherwise, he gave them nothing. He's 240 pounds. He doesn't hit people. He doesn't win board battles. He doesn't really play.
He loses a lot of pucks in the offensive zone.
To me, those are the two guys I'm looking at. That if you need to play better to win this series, those are the two guys who have to play better for you.
Yeah, I agree. And I really think that this Vanek, Zucker, and Coyle line is going to be the X factor for or against the Wild. Because you know that the Blackhawks are going to do everything possible to shut down the Koivu and the Granlund Lions. And so that really leaves this Coyle, Zucker, Vanek line. And to me, it is so intriguing because Zucker's speed and the fact that he was their leading goal scorer against the Blackhawks this year. And so, you need some support from three guys. And I just, I didn't like Vanek's series at all against the Blues. I thought he was non-existent for a lot of it. Today he was saying, he was talking about how good he was defensively in that series. And the matchups were...
Is he thinking of somebody
else? Tough. No, I mean that the matchups were tough, and hey, I get it. They were going up against Stastny's line and Laterra's line a lot, but he had 10 shots in the entire series. And,
he did hit a crossbar to keep point in game 2.
And he set up the Coyle play where he hit the
true.
crossbar. So, but you know what? Mike Yeo said today, and this is true, that Vanek actually had a pretty good season series against the Blackhawks, and it is true, and it's a different type of thing. And Vanek said today our moment's going to come, meaning him and Coyle, and this is potential of them being instrumental in the Wild winning.
All right, we're going to go to Twitter questions. Let's do these rapid fire, Michael.
Remember, we're going to give away the Russo's Filter shirt, too.
And we're going to give away a Guinness jersey as well. And there's still time to come in and get a free Guinness if you're in the neighborhood. And Anna and Mark, you guys will get the last 2 questions or comments, and you get to tell us more about your business before we get off the air. So, Michael, if you're capable, let's make this quick. Okay, we'll be here for 3 more hours. You might want to find more comfortable seats, folks. Let's see. From Wild Extra, were there a lot of dubs in St. Louis, and will there be more in Chicago?
There were a lot of dubs in St. Louis, especially before the game. 90 minutes before, they were doing the heck out of the arena and really riling up the Blues fans. And I think it'll be tougher to get tickets in Chicago. So St. Louis, it was ridiculous how many tickets you can get. So. It'll be probably a tougher building for the Wild fans to get into, but as we know, it's probably going to still be easier than here. I saw that they're actually putting tickets on sale in Chicago, which means that that's already something the Wild can't do.
Absolutely. P. Cameron with a statement. No Robert Luongo.
Is that InfoSeeker?
That is InfoSeeker. Yep.
Yeah. He once brought me a Starbucks card.
You're just the man.
Yeah,
you're the man about.
You know why he did? Because I called. He's by far my most, and this says a lot, InfoSeeker. You are by far my most negative Twitter follower, and so he was worried that once that I was going to block him. I think, and I told him I'd never block him because I actually get a kick out of his negativity. And one day I met him and his wife, and he brought me a Starbucks card.
Wow.
That's my story about InfoSeeker.
That's awesome. Dan Waldron, how long...
What was the question from InfoSeeker?
Well, it was a statement. He's basically saying, don't give Dubnyk a Robert Luongo type deal.
See, he borders on negative there. Do you really think that the Wild are going to give Dubnyk a Roberto Luongo contract? Like 1,000 years?
Apparently he's very worried about it. Okay, I think that'll be the answer. That grunt will be the answer to that question.
InfoSeeker.
Dan,
you know what? I chirp InfoSeeker by telling him on Twitter how I want to give his wife like a medal, like that she has to every day deal with his negativity.
If you had a family, you wouldn't have this much time to fight with people on Twitter all the time.
It's fun though.
Yeah, Dan Waldron.
I blocked somebody by 7 a.m. today.
What did that person do to you?
I can't remember it, but it bothered me, so I ousted him.
Dan Waldron, is there like a LASIK surgery for aggravated personalities you guys help Russo with too?
Yeah.
Is there a combo package?
Yeah.
Any kind of coupon? A punch card? How about a punch card for Russo?
I'm not kidding you. I was outside the arena the other day at that party, and the majority of people are really, really nice to me, like way too nice to me. And all of a sudden, I caught. I'm talking to Paul Fletcher and his dad and a couple other in a Wild jersey, and his hands are folded, and he's just staring at me like this. I mean, just an angry look. And so, I'm talking to a couple minutes go by, and I look, and he is just fixated, staring at me. and like real angry look. And I'm starting to actually like now really watching him to make sure that he's not going to like attack me. And then like a couple minutes later, I forget about him. All of a sudden, I look again, and he is, I'm not kidding you, just staring at me with this angry look. And it dawned on me that I must have, either attacked him on Twitter or blocked him on Twitter or something. And that's when I'm like, you know what, I'll see. I'm going to go inside now. like, I guess my biggest fear is that you don't know who the heck these people are that are, like, ripping on you on Twitter, and so you get rid of them, and now you might run into them on the street. So this happened to me at Tom Reed's once, too. Guy came up to me, and he's like, how come you never reply to me on Twitter? I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's like luck of the draw. Like, sometimes I'm not looking at it when you tweet me.
Hey, does everybody here remember that time when I told Michael to keep the answers short?
Yeah.
Anybody remember that?
Where do we have to go?
Well, okay, let's do a 4-hour show.
Right. Is there another show after us on this live social network?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Dan Waldron, how long will Quinville keep his top defense pair separated?
Who is he considering the top defense pair? That's the interesting thing. I mean, it is interesting that Duncan Keith is playing with Michael Roosevelt right now. It just doesn't seem right. I mean, first of all, it doesn't seem right that Michael Roosevelt is still in the league.
Right.
But you know what? As long as right now, I mean, I like the way that their units are set up. I mean, I still think Chalmerson is one of the most underrated defensemen in the league. And as long as, I think it says a lot about also going into the series against the Wild and how deep they are, that you want to try to have Keith and Chalmerson and Seabrook all on different lines and different pairs. And, it didn't work for the Blues, having everybody mixed up. And so I think that we'll see, we all know that Joe Quenneville is the ultimate line shuffler. I mean, you don't see lines usually stay together or defense pairs. So, I would say that it's probably not the... I would say it's probably, maybe midway into Game 1. We'll see.
Doc with the typical insider hockey question. Have the refs for the first game been announced? And please tell me one of them is not Brad Meyer.
I don't know why people hate Brad Meyer. Last time he did a Wild game, he gave the Wild like 6-7 power plays. I think people forget that. They probably haven't. Actually, they'll announce it. Although I was talking to Chris Lee the other day in St. Louis, and they were getting their assignments after that game. Like, he didn't know where he was going to be, if he was going to be anywhere. So they probably know by now, but I don't think they've announced it. Maybe they're waiting for Game 7 to end tonight between Tampa and Washington, Tampa and Detroit, which just dawned on me. We got to get that on in here.
Yes, we do. Katie Zachman, one of our most loyal listeners, says, I can't think of a good question for you guys, but I'm just hoping that Russo has a reason to say slacks again. His last broadcast, Russo said slacks, and I made fun of him for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
And he only owns slacks, guys. That's all he owns. He doesn't own jeans. Just slacks.
Yeah.
And I had not heard the word slacks since my father accidentally said it in 1940 or something like that.
Devin Dubnyk was snubbed for the Hart. Oh no. Ovechkin, Tavares, and Carey Price, three finalists.
Way to change the subject.
I'm just breaking some news. Sorry.
As always. Here's a complaint from Wild Extra. Why do we have to listen to Ed Olczyk on the NBC Sports broadcast? Can't they find anyone outside arm's length from the Hawks?
Where did Wild Extra go? Did he take off? He was here.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, that's Lonnie.
Oh, I didn't recognize that was Lonnie. Now I understand.
Why? I don't get why he doesn't like Eddie Olczyk.
I don't either.
The best.
Well, we'll wait for him to come back and we can tell us himself.
To me, it's subjective. I mean, there's so many people that that don't like. Believe it or not, Jim, I bet there's people that don't like us.
True. The good thing with the podcast is they probably just don't listen.
Yeah.
Whereas with the more mainstream stuff, they feel like they're subjected to it.
Yeah.
This one you have to kind of go out of your way to find. So I'm guessing the people who hate us are...
Sometimes when I do the fan, oh my God, some of the tweets I get from people that aren't happy with stuff I said or whatever.
Anything you want to repeat?
No.
Okay.
We got it on.
Andrew McCain, has the sample size been big enough with Dubnyk for fans to be confident this is what we'll see for a while? We kind of already answered that one, but if you have another thought, go ahead.
No.
I think we've seen enough. Dan Waldron again. How do you think?
RTFB, Andrew. We need to have LTFP. Listen to the effing podcast. That'll be our new thing. We'll come out with T-shirts.
From Jared Rogers Martin.
Minnesota Eye Consult right on the back.
Right?
Would that be not something that you guys would want?
I don't know. We'll have to run that by compliance. And see what we come with.
Sounds like a question for me.
Is that you? Okay.
Jared is asking your biggest disappointment in the 2015 NHL playoffs so far.
Having to give away my Death Cab QD tickets to you. That was my biggest disappointment. Biggest disappointment, Winnipeg, because I picked them to go far. Kind of St. Louis, too, because I picked them to go to the finals. So I've screwed up my bracket. I don't know if I messed up so there's this media, like, kind of, part of the bracket system on NHL.com, and I don't know if I messed it up because I haven't gotten chirped by anybody that my Stanley Cup finalist for the West is gone. Like, you'd think that you get, like, national, you stupid idiot emails, but
I'll send you one just to make you feel more comfortable. Doc, by the way, another one of our most passionate listeners, he was trying to talk his daughter into coming to the Liffey for this podcast on her birthday. And he was saying things on Twitter like, well, she likes corned beef and she likes Guinness. Or she's like 5.
I had one guy and we ran it on page 2 yesterday. I actually sent it to Rand to run that wanted to, I assume he was joking, wanted to know when the Wild schedule was coming out because he was getting married on Friday and needed to know if he needed to reschedule his wedding. So,
Good grief.
Yeah.
And Mark R., how about this one? He wants to know which team wears the nicest slacks. I think you're starting something.
Yeah, exactly.
Will Tomlinson, likely to see any D-line changes in this series? Prosser or Folan, for example?
No.
Doc again.
Maybe Prosser, but probably not. I mean, I think they're Leopold. It'd be hard to throw either one of those guys in at this point after not playing for so long.
Doc again, given the Hawks style of play, is it likely that a faster player like Schrader? We kind of already answered that one. That's the problem with doing this live is I'm not really editing very well. We got to get a Russo filter question in, and then we're going to go back to Mark and Anna. Let's see. Nope, that's not really a question. How about from Jason Piant, another one of our loyal followers?
Friend of the program?
Friend of the program. Your opinion, should the referee decision on a penalty by one player versus embellishment by another be an either or, not both?
No.
And he's referring to the Cook play, obviously.
Yeah, no, I don't think it should be. I think sometimes it's not diving, it's embellishing. And if you are, getting hooked but then do a little somersault, I think that both can be called. I will say I wasn't completely convinced that after I watched it on replay, I understand why the ref thought that Cook was embellishing, but I'm not 100% positive he was.
Agreed.
It was a can opener, but maybe he sold it a little more. And refs don't like to be shown up. Unfortunately, and I will say this, and I was talking to a referee about this the other day, is that I think that by them putting the whistle in their pocket for the majority of playoff games, it causes players to embellish because they don't call penalties. So if you don't want embellishing in the playoffs, call a penalty. And, these refs, they're so into... I watched this Islander-Washington game the other night. The Game 7. The referees you could just tell, they went into this game like, we're not going to call anything because we're going to let the players decide. I love that. We're going to let the players decide. Well, you know what? If you're letting murder go by on the ice, that's going the opposite way. You're also affecting the outcome of the contest. And that was such a violent series. Like we talk about, we're always in this little tunnel vision of this Minnesota-St. Louis series. It was nothing compared to the Wild, compared to the Capitals-Islanders series. That was a man series. Like, I would have been scared to write it as a sports writer. It was honestly intense. Like I couldn't believe how, the amount of hard hits in that series. It was scary. It was Clutterbuck and Martin and all those guys.
You can find all the shows at SouhanUnfiltered.com via iHeartRadio. Subscribe for free on iTunes. Let's wrap this up. Mark, make sure I get everything right here. Mark Hansen, MD from Minnesota Eye Consultants, corneal specialist.
Durham.
From Durham, North Carolina. He's a Duke guy, but that doesn't mean you have to hate him.
Well, Tyus Jones is our connection here.
That's right. You like Tyus Jones. That's the Minnesota thing to say. Very, very smart marketing right there. Give us one more question and give us one more perspective on your business.
All right, one question here from Anna.
Okay. So, interestingly, it seems like everybody kind of wants there to be a rivalry between Chicago and Minnesota, and it's kind of got all the great makings for it. Why do you think that hasn't really caught on, or do you think it might in this series? Or
Well, it is interesting that, most people think that rivalries are built in the playoffs, and this is going to be the third playoff series between the two teams, and there's no, quote-unquote hatred. I think it's the way that both teams are built. They're built to play between the whistles, not after. The Wild won the St. Louis series between the whistles, and the Blues maybe have won it afterwards. And I think we saw who usually wins if you play between the whistles. And I just think that Andrew Shaw is the only one that you really got to worry about from a Chicago standpoint. But also, I think you got to be more competitive. I mean, let's be honest. I think that the Blackhawks look at the Wild very differently than maybe the Wild look at the Blackhawks. And hopefully, this is the series that all changes. That they have a reason to take the Wild seriously. I mean, 2 years ago, it really reminds me of the Winnipeg-Anaheim series that I just mentioned to Jared there. That Winnipeg is a newbie to the playoffs. Even though they got swept by the Ducks, this will prove huge for them next year if they get in the playoffs. And it's kind of the same maturation that we saw with the Wild. They got annihilated by the Hawks in 5. Then they went in. They played the Hawks last year. Played them pretty well, but still lost. But they felt like they had learned a lot, and that continued. And I think that right now it's incumbent on the Wild. We keep on saying this is a different feeling. They're deeper. They're more balanced. They're faster. They're better. They can win on the road. They got the goalie. And yet we've got to see it if this is real. And this is the perfect opportunity for the Wild to prove that this Blackhawks team is a team that they can not just compete with, but beat.
In a couple minutes, Michael Russo and I are going to make our picks. But now, Mark Hansen from Minnesota Eye Consultant, Dr. Mark Hansen from Minnesota Eye Consultant, tell me a little more about your business.
Yeah, so as you've been sitting here listening and contemplating LASIK, one of the things to know is that we offer free LASIK screenings to new patients where you have a chance to come in and sit down with the surgeon, who will be the one that actually does the procedure, and talk about what the possibilities are. It'll take just 30 seconds to look online to see the impressive credentials of the surgeons associated with Minnesota Eye Consultants, their publications, research interests, invited lectures that they've given around the country and around the world. More important, though, than the credentials, I think, is the patient experience. When you come into Minnesota Eye Consultants, you're joining our family, and we're going to treat you like we would one of our family members.
Even Russo?
Maybe. It depends if he jumps off the table or not. But we expect a great outcome, and you'll have a fantastic patient experience.
How many surgeons do you have, by the way?
So we have...
Yep, there's 7 surgeons that will do refractive surgery, but we have 9 in the practice there. It's a multidisciplinary, multi-specialty practice, so not all of our surgeons do refractive or LASIK. Some of them focus mostly on reconstructive surgery or glaucoma treatments. But yeah, there's 7, I think, now that do LASIK.
And the best ways to get a hold of you, either obviously just Google Minnesota Eye Consultant and find it. You're also at Minnesota Eye on Twitter. Any other good way?
Yep, at Minnesota Eye on Twitter. We have a Facebook page, facebook.com/Minnesota Eye Consultants. And then, of course, online, we've got a lot of information on our website, a lot of self-LASIK tests. You can contact us. You can get a hold of our LASIK coordinator that will answer any other questions that you have. Certainly can give us a call to 1-800-EYE-TO-EYE is a phone number that will get you to our call center. So,
awesome. Well, we appreciate you guys coming out today. It's always fun to talk to you.
Thanks for having us.
What do you think of the weather after 1 year in Minnesota?
Well, it was a pretty cold winter, but from what I gather, it was a pretty mild winter for Minnesota.
Yeah, it was.
It was long, but it wasn't
last year.
brutal.
Didn't we have like 30 days of sub-zero or something? 30 straight days. It was like crazy.
It was disgusting.
And this year was like nothing. I mean, did it even snow?
No, it was just long and boring.
Actually, one of the worst storms I've ever been to. As we enter our third hour of the show now.
Third hour is always the best, though.
As one of the, I'm meeting a student here. Are you this, by the way, the student? All right, there we go. I was wondering.
You're late, Russo.
Well, I knew. I'm like, he's not drinking a free Guinness, so I'm thinking he must be the student on this meeting.
If I were the student,
one of the worst storms I've ever experienced was in Raleigh, like about 7-8 years ago. Actually, I was still covering the Florida Panthers at the time, so it was like an ice storm. I don't know if you remember that. It was like unbelievable. Like 3 days, I was just like stuck. Like couldn't even leave the Marriott.
And they have no way to handle it, so everything just shuts down.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was like ice skating. I remember ice skating. You know where the Crabtree Mall is?
Oh yeah.
I was like ice skating right across that highway. Let's talk more about Raleigh. Angus Barn. You like Angus Barn?
Angus Barn's fantastic.
Angus Barn's my favorite restaurant in the world. It's unbelievable. It's honestly, if you're ever in Raleigh, you got to go to Angus Barn's right by the airport. I think near Cary or something. And it's like one of the most unique places in the world. They got a cigar bar. which is kind of my thing.
Yeah,
Jim,
absolutely.
before you finish up, do we have a final count on how many times Mike said I shouldn't say this,
He
but?
only said it a couple times.
Yeah, I know.
It was very disappointing. I think you owe us.
Yeah, but even all those those little Pelfrey stories are probably stuff I shouldn't have said.
That's true. You just didn't.
Here's a story I shouldn't tell you. So, and actually, my mother, who I know is listening, she listens to every one of the shows. I haven't even told her
And you
this
still
yet.
cuss. I
And
love that.
I'm going to show you. I'm going to show Jim this and I just got to. Is the Wild assistant GM here? Because I think he might be, because I'm getting chirped by him right now.
Hey, we can give him a.
I'm getting chirped by him about being at the Liffey. So anyway, texting me that sales must be down at the Liffey right now because I'm here. So I'm going to show you this just to show you that I'm not kidding, and you're going to get a kick out of this. So in a row, I'm talking to. First of all, I'm talking to. I texted Dino. This just shows you how absent-minded I am. I texted Dino today to tell him that Rachel Blount's going to be calling, and I accidentally send the text to Rachel. But here's the most unbelievable one. So I'm texting back and forth with Zach Parisi, and all of a sudden, my mother, and this is probably something I definitely shouldn't say, she texts me to find out what my GoGo internet account is so she can be on the internet on her flight tomorrow. So I sent it to her with my username, password, and all that stuff, and look who I sent it to.
You sent it to Zach Parisi. But the good thing is, Zach can't afford Wi-Fi, so now he's going to be able to get free Wi-Fi. You're going to free up his entire career.
So I sent Zach. I'm like, thank God you're not a thief, because that is my password to like absolutely everything.
And here, I'm gonna reveal it. Michael Russo's password for everything is RTFB.
Yeah, exactly. So we have to get that shirt away.
We do. You want to do it on the air or off the air?
On the air. Let's
Okay.
do it. We might as well.
Take a winner.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. What should we do? How should we do it? Scott, how do you think we should do
He
it?
just wants the shirt.
We want to give away the Guinness shirt and the RTFB shirt. We need 2 winners. How do we choose a winner?
Maybe how about we throw out a trivia, like a hard trivia question?
There you go.
Do it.
Okay.
Now you got to think of one.
Yeah, really.
You didn't think that far. What's Michael Russo's internet password?
Yeah, I know. How about this? The closest that somebody could get to how many times per game the Wild were shorthanded in the first round. Anybody?
Anyone?
So the amount of times the Wild were shorthanded per game in the first round was the lowest in the NHL.
1.
Anna says 1 per game.
Oh, per game.
Yeah, per game.
Okay.
For the series. I mean, per game. So what's the average? You're saying 2. You're saying 1.
1.5.
1.5.
0.5.
1 point. Well, you want to go different.
0.5.
Oh, 0.5. Did you pick?
What's left?
0.75.
0.75. Mac?
I'll go on 3.
3. Scott's not part of this. I hate to say it because the freaky. Oh, we haven't let Dr. Hansen go.
Maybe 0.25.
0.25. I hate to say it because this guy came here and got free death cab tickets, but the closest to
man,
it
he's cleaning up
is
today.
Jared.
Absolutely.
1.6 times per game. Lowest in the league. So which does he get?
Do you want the RTFB or the Guinness shirt?
Well, I like that Guinness shirt.
Take it. It's all yours.
Boy, what a shot to Nick Henry.
And
Russo's filter's now ticked off. Should block Jared.
Wow.
That's an awesome jersey.
It actually is. And we have a really nice Guinness jersey that we'll give out at the end of the Wild's playoff run.
Okay.
Now we need to pick a winner for the RTFB shirt.
Let's come up with anything. Let's see. All right. Let me think.
How about how many games between playoff goals did Mikko Koivu go?
Oh, that's a good one.
I think I know the answer.
We should probably.
I'll have to re-look it up.
How about this one? I got one. How many? Sorry, Mikko. Oh, I have a great Mikko story, but he definitely told me I couldn't tell that one.
That'd be awesome.
Anyway,
so when are you gonna tell it?
I'll tell you off the air. Here, I'm sorry for this one. How many points does Mikko Koivu have in 11 career games against the Chicago Blackhawks in the playoffs?
-3.
Right.
Anna made the
Let's start.
sad
Matt,
face.
how many points?
Anna made the sad face when I said that. I take it back.
11 career playoff games against the Blackhawks. How many points does Mikko have? 6. Severance guy? 5. Jared, you're out. You've gotten too much stuff today, buddy. I'm sorry. I don't know your names. Andrew, right?
Yeah. 4.
4?
3.
What's your name?
Mike.
Mike. Anna?
I was going to say 3.
Different. You said 3?
He said 3. 2.
2? Dr. Hansen?
2.5.
It's 1.
Wow.
How happy is Mike going to be when you go home with an RTFB shirt?
He'll love it.
Yeah, he will. Wow. So I'll get that for my dad. Yeah, 1 career playoff point in 11 games against the Blackhawks.
And since you're just giving stuff away, how about some Rolling Stone tickets for me?
Yeah, 100%. When are they here? Are they here?
I don't know.
Because somebody actually joked that.
Tickets are $8,000.
Yeah.
I'm not going.
Yeah. Well, this is a good show.
Well, Michael Russo has proclaimed this a good show, so I guess it was okay. Say slacks for me one more time. We'll get out of here. Slacks. Thanks. So you say it's such a New Yorker fashion too.
Yeah.
Slacks.
You want to hear a really funny story about my mom today?
Sure.
So my mother calls me. So yesterday, Brandon Molesky tweeted out, because I jokingly, I don't even know if that was today or yesterday, about how there's no animosity in this series. So I jokingly wrote that and then I attached the 3 Blackhawks writers are jerks on Twitter. So he writes that Mike Russo is the Steve Odd of agitators. So my mother calls me up and goes, she's like, I really love that tweet by Molesky, saying that you're the Steve Odd of agitators. And then she goes, I gave him a star. On Twitter. That's awesome. I don't think she understood that the star on Twitter is favoriting a tweet.
She gave him a gold star?
But she
That's
gave
awesome.
him a star. Yeah. I just thought that was really funny. All right.
That's beautiful.
It's like when my mother sent me this text once that said, I learned how to text, and it was an email. So anyway.
Well, I'll tell you what,
hi,
everybody,
Mom.
I'm going to leave now, but Russo's just going to keep talking. He's going to stay, and you can feel free to stay with him. It's good for him to have people to talk to.
He's got to meet
Let's
with
put it
his
that way.
students.
That's right. Absolutely.
Oh, this poor kid.
You're going to teach this kid how to curse on the air, teach him how to say slacks, teach him how to block people. That's going to be the main lesson. How do you block people on Twitter? Listen, fun show. Thank you, everybody who showed up. Thank you, everybody who listened online. Thank you for all the tweets. Thank you to Mark and Anna for showing up. Again, check them out at Minnesota Eye Consultants, Twitter, Facebook, Google, whatever. You'll find them. And we'll be doing another show from Chicago, we believe, on Friday. Check us out on Twitter, Russo Strib or Souhan Strib, to find out the plans for that.
I think 4 o'clock.
I think 4 o'clock on Friday. That could change. And then next Tuesday, 2 o'clock, here at the Liffey with Craig Leopold, the Wild owner. And then we might be doing an emergency Liffey session, 5 o'clock before Game 4 from the Liffey. We're still working on that one, too.
Thanks, Jim.
Say slacks.
Slacks.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.